Hi, everyone. Good evening and welcome to Seven Stories Up. Peter B. Kaufman with Marcos Suerobal, The Moving Image, a User's Manual. We are delighted to have you all joining us tonight at the Stavros Niarchos Foundation Library. My name is Allison Nellis and I'm a supervising librarian here at SNFL. Before we begin, I would like to thank the Stavros Niarchos Foundation for making programs like this evening's conversation possible. I would like to encourage you to visit NYPL's website and take a look at upcoming programs just like this one. We have an excellent lineup this season featuring new nonfiction, music, and more, and we would love for you to join us in this space again. Wow. It is now my pleasure to introduce tonight's speakers. Marcos Suerobal is a member of the Technical Committee of the Association of Recorded Sound Collections and the International Association of Sound and Audiovisual Archives, and was a part of the collection management task force that drafted the Library of Congress National Recording Preservation Plan in 2012. In 2011, he co-translated the definitive text on audio preservation, ISA's guidelines for the production and preservation of digital audio objects. He is a member of the Standards Committee of the Audio Engineering Society and has taught audio preservation at Long Island University's Palmer School of Library Science. In 2011, he mastered and restored Jacqueline Kennedy, Historic Conversations on Life with John F. Kennedy. In 2008, he was nominated for a Grammy for his work on Polk Miller and his Old South Quartet. Marcos has worked at the Alan Lomax Archives, Columbia University Libraries, where he developed AVDB, a preservation prioritization tool, the Center for Black Music Research, Masterdisc Mastering Studio, and Emory University. He's on the board of the New York Technical Services Librarians. Peter B. Kaufman is a senior program officer at MIT Open Learning. He previously served as associate director of the Columbia University Center for Teaching and Learning, president and executive producer of Intelligent Television, co-chair of the JISC Film and Sound think tank in the United Kingdom, co-chair of the Copyright Committee of the Association of Moving Image Archivists, a member of the Scholar Advisor Committee of WGBH's American Archive of Public Broadcasting, a member of the American Council of Learned Societies Commission on Cyber Infrastructure in the Humanities and Social Sciences, president and publisher of TV Books at Broadway Video, and a consultant to the Library of Congress's National Audiovisual Conservation Center, the largest archive of moving images and recorded sound in the world. Educated at Cornell and Columbia, Kaufman is also the author of The New Enlightenment and The Fight to Free Knowledge. And it is now my pleasure to hand it over to tonight's guests.
Thanks everyone for coming here today. It's good to see that the weather is getting a little warmer, so have a good turnout. And Peter, it's so great to see you.
Likewise.
This is so great. We should do this really more often.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
One more time. Yeah.
Same time, same place. Yeah, I'm so glad you wrote this book. I think it's a terrific book, and I'm excited to chat a little more about it with all of you. And I should warn everyone so that no one is disappointed. We are going to run out of time.
We're going to run out.
Yeah. I have so many questions for you that, so many things that your book, I think, very succinctly and evocatively bring out to the fore. So I ride my bike everywhere, but occasionally I take the subway, and this may come as a surprise to some of you, but there's more people watching movies than reading books on the subway.
I've heard about that.
Yeah. It's shocking.
Yeah.
How did that happen, Peter?
It's been, what I guess I'm describing in this book, seemingly an elusive transformation. The rise of all of these technologies has really moved very quickly. We're only 130 years into the moving image. And yet, here we are, where it seems like video is pretty much the dominant form of interaction and human communication, not only on the 4 train, 5 train, 6 train, but also on the 1. Yeah, it's everywhere. So it happened quick.
Yeah, and I'm interested to know, there's scholars that have documented how technologies develop including things like printing press, and especially I'm thinking of scholars like David F. Noble, who describes how technologies are developed, and there's usually a reason, right? And the reason usually, not surprisingly, is follow the money. And I'm wondering why the moving image has become such a powerful force, and what is behind the force behind the moving image?
Well, the answer is a lot in the question. If we could show, I guess, that next image on the slide, second slide. I don't know if people remember this. This is the inauguration of Trump. If you follow the money, when I started writing this book, it was over 17 years ago, and I wanted to sort of develop a guide for using the moving image in scholarly communication and then communication more broadly. And in the process of finalizing the book during some of the years of Trump, and in the process of finalizing the whole book tour that I'm on, it became pretty clear that not only is Trump surrounded by tech bros or whatever, oligarchs, but these people together control all of the screens and network devices, or almost all of them, or a lot of them, that we depend on. And that's not an accident on his part, and it's certainly not an accident on theirs to be at the inauguration. So you have to follow the money, and the money's standing right there.
So is this a case where the stakes keep getting higher? I'm thinking of Marshall McLuhan and people like that who talked about media in a very broad sense, and how I wonder if the book has power to influence people. If you have a printing press, you have the power to influence a lot of people. The Roman emperors used the circus kind of as media in a way, right? So
we have another Roman emperor right now.
And you could make the argument that Roman emperors were actually very media savvy, right?
Yes.
They could probably be doing
Yes.
more important things than being at the circus.
I think that's exactly right.
But they were smart, and that's predates a lot of things that are happening now. But I think you make the point in the book that maybe video is so powerful, right? The printing press, when it came out, it was extremely powerful. You could print things actually without any controls, any guardrails. And broadsheets did that for many decades, if not centuries. Is the fact that video is so powerful that everyone on the train is doing nothing but watching moving images, is that part of what you're trying to do with video? Hey, first of all, printing press, the printing world is concentrated.
Yeah.
Let's not do the same thing.
Here are two things going on at the same time, which is we're living in this moment where we think we have this extraordinary control over the moving image, in the same way perhaps that some people have thought they had control over what was being printed and distributed. So we have iPhones, and we have TikTok, and we have YouTube, and the ability to post and distribute and record and all of that. But if you look at the other side of it, the consolidation of ownership around these things, and this cycle, well, it's not always a cycle, but the dependencies that we've formed on individuals like this who are lining up for, the tyrant circus, if you're going to go ancient Rome on us. I think that's a huge problem. And it turns out, if you interrogate it a little bit, it's not the free world that you think it is.
Yeah, I think it seems to be fair to, again, comparing to the printing press, that nothing stops you from writing a book,
Right.
but good luck publishing it, right?
Right.
So,
Thank you. Actually, here I am. Yeah.
yours got
that's right,
published.
that's
You
right.
can't- you have nothing to complain on.
Uh-huh.
And tell us the three things that you were aiming to. You said at the very beginning of the book, the three
Yeah.
things that you're aiming to do with this book.
I have to remember. The first was to try and create a style book, like the Chicago Manual of Style, or to create the beginnings of a style book, or kind of the prototype of a style book. And, in the process, I wound up finding the original Chicago Manual of Style,
Oh, that's
which is this big. It's 200 pages. That's a facsimile edition produced by the University of Chicago
That's great.
Press. And the book contains, for good or ill, some research in the library at the University of Chicago from the early correspondence around this manual, which appeared for the first time in 1906, where the publishers were surprised to find that all of a sudden it was becoming a hit. Won praise for similar correspondence one day in the MIT Press archives around this book. But that was one objective. But in the process of writing it, I read a little more history, starting 300,000 years ago or so, like the dawn of man or whatever, and it turns out that people are communicating with each other now in print all the time, and we're now becoming a video-rich, almost video-dominated society. But for the first, I don't know, I work at MIT, math is not my strong suit, but for the first X number of years of human existence, it turns out we weren't communicating with print at all, or with writing even. We were communicating by talking to one another, and indeed by drawing things for each other with the image. So it was kind of sound and image. And in the process of writing it, I also discovered this new theory that the caves, Lascaux caves, where they're kind of drawings of these animals on the. Does anyone know why the drawings were situated in a certain part of the cave that they were? It turns out that's a kind of rhetorical question, but if anybody does have an answer, yes. 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 You get a free book. You just want a free. No, but
So maybe I should repeat the notes, the note that someone
right.
brought out. So there's one hypothesis anyway that says that there's something theatrical about the cave, essentially, that they were dark, and then you bring light, and all of a sudden these animals kind of.
You're an audio guy, and here's the answer that I've come across, which is someone went in there and started clapping to these different caves and figured out that this was the most acoustically rich environment within these caves. And so the theory has developed among these anthropologists and archaeologists. And there's a whole discipline now devoted to some of this, that these were performances where the drawings were here, the lights perhaps were flickering, and there was a narrative track that these guys, in some sense, were laying down. So we've been communicating in this way for a bajillion years, and Jeff Jarvis has come out with a book called the Gutenberg parenthesis. The Gutenberg parenthesis, which is this concept of that I'm describing, which is the print world maybe in the span of human communication, just a blip,
Right.
you know, and we may actually be going to where these people are taking us.
I think we're already there.
Yeah, I think so too.
Judging by it's the N train actually, that I take.
The N train.
Yeah,
Also the N train.
out to Queens. Yeah. So, and it's interesting because I think the power, one of the powers I think of text, it's its ability to condense, right? And does anyone cook here?
Mm-hmm.
Any cooks? Like, I can't stand recipes on YouTube. I want to read them, right? Because it has that condensation aspect of like, okay, now I know what I need to do. I don't need to watch 30 minutes of someone telling me how they grew up in southern Italy and how important this dish was for their mother or whatever. Just give me the recipe. So there's that sense.
Right.
But yet, those videos are everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
So, and then I guess the other part of discovery was the third thing, which is something that I'm trying to highlight as I discuss the book, which is how deeply it seems, how deeply not yet controlled, but soon to be controlled. And, you know, one thing I do want to play is a clip of 3 seconds. Can you guys back there put on the video clip? This is, I don't know if anybody remembers this Zelensky conversation, but it
So long ago.
ended this way. Oh,
Was made by Russia, the 51 agents. The whole thing was a scam, and he had to put up with that. He was being accused of all that
hold
stuff.
on, not that. That's not what.
All I can say is this. He might have broken deals with Obama and Bush, and he might have broken them with Biden. He did, maybe. Maybe he didn't. I don't know what happened. But he didn't break them with me. He wants to make a deal. I don't know if you can make a deal. The problem is, I've empowered you to be a tough guy.
Yeah, we want to
And
go though.
I don't think you'd be a tough guy without the United States. And your people are very
Sorry to
brave.
subject you to this
You're
again.
either
I'm
going to
just
make a
trying to-
deal or we're up. You've seen enough. What do you think?
Yeah, right here.
This is going to be great television, I will say that.
This goon has turned the Oval Office into, in effect, a television studio. And again, it's no accident. By the way, that clip is downloaded from Wikipedia, which has it, has the metadata all over it. It's one of the greatest gifts to mankind that we have. It's also up on the Internet Archive. And citations are forthcoming. We put that together quickly. But yeah.
So that's a good segue for, I think, another of your objectives in writing this book, which is citation. And it's one of the things that books have become, that were not always like this. And there's actually a great book called Index, History of, that talks about this, about citations and how to, basically it's a way to contextualize anything that you say. And you seem to wish for a similar thing in video, right? In moving image.
I do. And I'm trying to bring forth that wish. And it's a big, long book of 66,000 words that's worth reading only for one page in it, which is page 128, where there's a table of moving image citation models of the kind that don't really proliferate well enough among academics, or it turns out, I looked at all of these style guides. I looked at the Blue Book for law, and I looked at the medical style books for medicine, and it turns out that the dominant medium of communication these days has very little. I mean, even the Chicago Manual of Style, bless it, has just a couple pages of citation guidelines for rich media. And we really need to be thinking about that in more depth, and not just how to cite the moving image, but more fascinatingly, how to cite truths within the moving image, so that when someone is watching something, especially now online, instead of waiting for the credits to roll for sources, you might be able to advance all of that and turn what is, in effect, endnotes in video and film to television to footnotes.
Yeah. I think you mentioned this, and obviously, you know, Wikipedia. I was wondering if you think something like linked data can be a way to do this. I'm thinking of like a strip at the bottom, kind of where you click a URL and it takes you to the source for that particular clip.
100%. And I think there needs to be a lot more energy put into that kind of thing by our top technologists. If only I knew people, you know, by our top technologists thinking about this stuff, and by our best activists, because we're under this barrage of people who say they didn't say something that they just said. You know, it's a bit maddening, and it's up to the people, like this institution, the place where you work at NYC Archive. These are the heroes of our time, you know.
Well, and I think it goes back to what we talked about before.
Speaking personally about you, by the way, that you're the hero of our,
Wow, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll put that on my resume.
Yeah, exactly. You're welcome.
I'm thinking of the of what we said before, and I think, again, the technologies are really not that complicated. But is there an interest? If there's no interest in truth, why should you have a way to verify it, right?
Yes.
Anyhow, we'll leave it there. There was a third. Have we mentioned 2 of your 3 objectives?
I think so. I probably mentioned 4, actually, or 5. Yeah. But
Yeah. So, and going back to YouTube, I think it might be fair to say, you just mentioned NAVCC at the Library of Congress,
Yeah.
but it may be fair to say that maybe YouTube is the best video archive humanity has ever had. Would that be safe? Or?
Well, that's a curious thing, because YouTube is under the control of a corporation that doesn't necessarily have our best interests at heart. And, you know, one of the things for us to think about, part of the reason why I wrote the New Enlightenment and the Fight to Free Knowledge, which starts in the 1500s of all things, and part of the reason why I went back to 1906 and then before that to the you know, early man is because I think we need to take the long view about where we are with the moving image. We need to understand that we might actually be returning to some kind of communication patterns that we've had for most of our existence on the planet, but also, like, we need to recognize that this may be an inflection point with, a consummate liar in the office of the most powerful person in the world. We may actually need to mobilize. No may about it. We actually need to mobilize to develop mechanisms for authenticating video, especially video of the kind that people don't necessarily want to have up online. Thanks. Yeah, you're in. Free book for you. This is why I don't get any royalties out of these things. Yeah, we need to mobilize actually for this, and we need to mobilize now, and we need to mobilize against, not necessarily with, the people who were portrayed on that first slide.
Yeah, and I think, again, we're there, doesn't mean we can't get out. But it's a little frightening. Talking about, we're in a library, I'm an archivist, so
yes,
let's talk a little bit about
noticed
preservation.
Both of those things. Yeah.
Well, actually, I need to mention, I don't know what page it is, but my favorite part of the book, you can probably guess.
I don't know. Go on.
Is when you talk about in the style guide section,
Yeah.
the first thing you say is audio is very important.
Yes.
as an audio guy.
Yeah.
I love that. And
Okay.
it's something that too many video people, our friend here notwithstanding,
Yes.
don't pay attention to.
Yeah,
But
it's true.
yeah. And it's
Yeah.
actually, I think it's related to what we're talking about at the beginning, which is how almost primeval these media are,
Yeah.
right? Like how audio can affect you in a very emotional way, how video, especially with audio, can affect you in a very emotional way. And as
Yeah.
archivists, I think we sometimes don't, as media archivists, we sometimes don't emphasize that enough, that these are very, very powerful tools, which is why these people, the top 5 people that you saw there, the
Yes.
inauguration, they're no dummies. They know that. And
No-
that's how they,
no
play.
dummies.
And
And what's his name? The guy who invited them is no dummy either
Right.
about this. And that's what's so terrifying.
I mean, that's basically the premise of Fahrenheit 451, right? That
Exactly
this-
right.
The thing that's invading the house is a screen, an interactive screen,
Exactly.
interestingly enough.
And there's a scene in the movie where people have hidden their books inside their television sets. There's actually, by the way, a QR code to a movie clip to a film clip from that Truffaut film. And I just want to say the other good thing about this book, and there are not many good things apart from that table, and this thing, which is there are 34 QR codes in this book, and I owe it to my friend, Dr. Seth Fine, for coming up with the idea to put these QR codes, who's here today. If he weren't here today, I would take full credit for that idea, but because he's here today, he's owed it. And to my mind, I think that could be a major sea change for publishing when you refer to media from this point on. In fact, I noticed that the pamphlets that these guys here at Stavros Niarchos put out there have QR codes on them too. So when you're reading this book with your phone, if you know how to use a QR code as opposed to taking a photo of the QR code by accident, but if you can actually watch the video of the clip that I'm describing,
Yeah,
and I
love
think
that.
that's an extraordinary achievement. So
Yeah.
thank you, Seth.
Yeah, I've never seen a book with so many QR codes. I love it. I mean, you're preaching what you pray, or you're practicing what you preach.
Yeah, practicing. Right.
So YouTube was really interesting. I did a little bit of research for this talk, and there's a lot of numbers that you mentioned about, the amount of video that's out there, how common it is, and how much of the total internet traffic is, and all this. So I did a little bit of research on YouTube, and this is, so the first thing I did was, what are the most popular channels on YouTube?
Right.
I won't bore you with it. It's slightly depressing,
Yes.
but
true.
brings up the idea that, again, YouTube is I think it's a very good archive, actually, in terms of, at least in terms of access. But the curation is really interesting. It's purely, obviously, profit-driven. And one of the things that was really interesting to me is that some statistics have been culled from usage, and less than 1% of YouTubers break even,
Yeah.
right? So we have something with, 5.1 billion videos on YouTube, and less than 1% break even.
Yeah.
However,
Also,
YouTube,
authors, less than 1% of authors
is that right?
break it. No, just
But
go ahead.
I don't know.
No.
I thought you were buying me dinner
Yeah.
after this with the
Yeah,
royalties.
maybe. Gotta run. Yeah.
So, but however, YouTube still places advertisements on those that don't make any money. So it's
Yeah.
actually a great business model,
It
right?
is a great business.
I thought that coming from the music industry, I thought those were predatory practices, but this is like, wow, this is much better. Like this is really, no matter whether you make money or how much money you make, we're gonna make money off you.
Yeah. That may
so
be extreme predation. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
Maybe
but-
it's considered fair, I think, these days.
Well, they're not sharing that money all the time. with
No.
people.
So again, and it's related also to how do you fund an archive? How do
Yeah.
you make that
Yeah.
permanent, and who's curating that, right? Because if we go by numbers, then we would be saving the most important video of our time would be things like Mr. Beast, which is the #1
Yeah.
channel,
Yeah.
and the T series from India, which is actually okay.
Okay.
Cocomelon. A lot of kids' channels are
Yeah.
the top
Yeah.
videos
Yeah.
on YouTube, which is really interesting.
Well, I mean,
How do you
hey,
curate something like that? I
yeah.
don't know.
So you will go into the archiving Mr. Beast video business, and I will, remember us little people after you, build that company and stuff.
I don't
But
think they need my help.
in this book, I tend to express more terror about, people wiping videos of Holocaust survivors off the internet, or putting up fakes that are manipulated. And it's a funny thing, at MIT Open Learning, we have, something called the Digital Credentials Consortium, which is about 2 years old now. And basically what that exists to do is, if you've taken a class online, you get an online credential that is protected in some mechanism by blockchain technology that is unalterable. So you can show it to a prospective employer or to someone else. But in fact, what we need to be doing is credentialing our courses, because there are people who are going to take the courses that MIT offers, and anyone else in this world, and on climate, for example, and change them. And so what we need to do is actually protect the courseware that is out there from alteration. And there's a whole lot of this stuff. There's a QR code to the to Collateral Murder, which is that clip that Julian Assange released. That's of that helicopter gunship and those guys in it blowing these civilians away as though it were a video game. This is the kind of footage that has Mr. Beast to one side. Don't want to knock that guy. A lot of people, but that's the kind of stuff that these kinds of government officials, who themselves come from television. I mean, the entire Trump cabinet, Hegseth, the defense guy, is a Fox News commentator. Our Secretary of Education comes from World Wrestling Entertainment, which is nothing if not a television driven enterprise. They know the power of the moving image, and they're going to do what they can to rub out the moving images that matter to the record. And on this point, just one other thing, which is, we're going to be doing in Milwaukee in April a panel on safeguarding audiovisual data. And one of the panelists, two panelists are joining me. One is Brewster Kahle, the head of the Internet Archive, and the founder, and an MIT graduate also, but not also, an MIT graduate as well as being the founder of, but also David Roundtree, who was the archivist for 12 years at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. And the difficulties that he had, and that The Hague as an institution, that the court had, the ICJ had, curating, preserving these testimonies from war criminals from the former Yugoslavia and Rwanda, is terrifying. And the idea that these might disappear from the record is even more terrifying. So
Yeah. It's funny because also because of this talk, I watched, I'm sure you know this film, The Living Record of Our Memory. It's like Martin Scorsese speaks. It's a great film. And there was this quote that someone mentions that says, the films of, I'm an audio guy, forgive me, but there's some famous, I assume producer or director whose films were lost. He says something like, the films of this person will reappear when the world deserves them.
Yeah.
And it made me think of like, well, maybe we have the archives we deserve as a society,
Right.
where Mr. Beast is number one,
Right.
but the crimes from Yugoslavia are
This book doubles as something no, that's not right. I think that we have the potential to preserve the archives that we deserve if we do it. And that's why the work of non-commercial institutions that are active in this enterprise today deserves every bit of the support that they can garner.
Yeah, although that, takes work and it takes political will.
It does.
And
There are people who are trying to close down the Internet Archive. There are people who challenge Wikipedia every day.
absolutely.
Those are two of the ones that I speak about it, write about at great length in here. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nothing new. I mean, I remember in the film they mentioned an organization that you mentioned, FIAF,
Yeah.
and how which started, by the way, with MoMA up the street,
Yeah. Yeah.
and other film archives, and they had to convince their
The boards.
the studios
Yeah.
that they were not competing with them. They
Yeah.
just wanted to help them save their stuff.
That's
but
right.
the studios were places like Paramount were literally burning their films on purpose,
Right.
because they didn't want them to be reused. Which, from a purely economical standpoint, make sense.
Right.
Probably not, but
Right.
if you're really paranoid, maybe that's what you would do.
Yeah.
So it's to me.
I think it's
something
always
that's
been a
very telling.
battle to sort of convince people that, there's a Bruder film, for example, which is in this book, and there's a QR code to it, and so is something worth preserving, or any other of these extraordinary kind of, there is no equivalent yet, I suppose, of the Bible for the moving image. And if there were, what would it be? It's an interesting concept. Likewise, if Wikipedia were to start today, I think it would have to be a video-centric encyclopedia.
Right. Peter, it's a great book. I wanted to know what you're working on next, because you're always working on something.
So I'm working on a book that's will get even fewer readers than this book, which is the trajectory that I'm aiming for, just eventually. It's a book on the sociology of knowledge, which is like how it is that we think these ideas, or how it is other people really think the crazy ideas that they think. And in part, it's based on, that very first image, which is, who is it that puts these ideas into people's heads? One of the craziest things to me is it seems that disinformation, misinformation, just bad information, is the number one problem of our time. And television has played video, the moving image has played such a huge role in distributing it. And when you watch MSNBC or some of these other television networks, they're always blaming social media, or they're blaming something else. But it could be that they need to look inward a little bit and recognize that these television networks, in particular, Fox, most extraordinary. You talk about a business model.
Yeah.
It's just and what that business model represents when you have television like that circulates is that the truth is paywalled, but the lies are free, and that's a quote from Nathan Robinson, which is at the heart of this book, and the heart of the the effort on this next book, which is starts in Austria, Hungary, Germany in the 1930s.
Well, knowledge is power, so why would you give it away for free, right? It's
Knowledge is power.
much easier to give bread and circuses. And
Totally right.
yeah.
I love the idea of thinking about the Roman emperors. I mean, they're people. Some French senator or something just referred to Trump as a kind of modern day successor of Caligula or something. And there's food for thought there.
Yeah.
I don't know if we take questions yet.
I think
You can't get another book. You free book.
what was that, Allison?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. If there are any questions, we can pass microphones around.
Wait.
Yeah, can please wait until your microphone is in front of you. I'm an audio guy. I'm very
Oh yeah. You
strict
got to
about
respect the audience.
I just find it ironic when you look at the reweaving of life, society, coincides with these changes in our communication. But it's interesting that with each one of these events, we look backwards. We don't look forwards. And it seems like this is what the more we are able to gather ideas or stories anchored in the past, the more we stay stuck. It's like kind of ironic that we have so much we have the ability to gather so much information, and yet each time we go through these changes, it's like we're still you have like the Supreme Court, the strict constructionists. You know, religion is still like, what did somebody say 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago? And it seems like we kind of rest the power of our influence on sort of looking backwards. It's like we don't progress, we regress, and it's like it's symbolic, just in the way that we're making America great again. It's like we insist on walking backwards.
So, I work at MIT, as has been noted, and you can't turn a corner without somebody talking about artificial intelligence these days. And generative artificial intelligence may help you out a little bit, because there are all kinds of ways that you can use machine learning to help you imagine in text, in audio, in video, in other forms too, what a future might look like. Just to finish, in the interim period, generative AI, which we didn't talk about, or AI generally, is something that we could unleash upon the world in a good way. And there's a movement now to kind of, almost in a supervisory sense, create, and the major foundations are setting up, 400 million, 2.5 billion is the objective of one of them, a public AI, a system of public AI, of philanthropic foundations, led by the MacArthur Foundation. And who knows, maybe that system could run through your archive and do synopses of every single holding in your archive, or a video synopsis of every single book ever created. This might be horrifying to those people who love books. I'm a bibliophile as much as the next guy, honestly. But in terms of making available to the world some knowledge, it may be the case that I'm straying a bit from your prompt there, but artificial intelligence could play a significant role for good. Who knows?
I'm going to quote again from someone that I mentioned earlier, David F. Noble, who talks about developments of technologies, especially in America in the 20th century, actually beginning in the late 19th century, and it says, it's a remarkably dynamic society that goes nowhere. And I think it's because the power structures, they either remain the same, or when there's a switch, the structure, like the people are different, but the structures are the same. There's, the same thing.
Right.
Like we're gonna give bad information for free. We're gonna keep the good one behind paywalls. And these structures. I mean, remember when I'm old enough to remember when the internet had great promise, and it was the age of information.
Me too. Yeah.
Like, and in some aspects, it has fulfilled some of its promise. It's also come with a lot of garbage.
Yeah.
There's no question.
Yeah.
And maybe the printing world was the same for a while. I don't know.
I think there's a lot. Oh, there's a lot of questions. If you want to circulate some, I don't know who chooses.
My fear has always been the saturation that happened during prior to World War II with the radio. How Hitler contaminated a nation
Yeah.
and had free radios in everyone's home,
Yeah.
and then they had it on every street corner.
Yeah.
And what frightens me today is when I see these young people, and older people also, with headphones on.
Yeah.
Forget about the visual. They are saturated by this.
Yeah.
Walking to the supermarket, the children on school buses.
too.
There's no visual there.
Yeah.
It's going right into their
Yeah.
brain. And they are totally, you can't even talk to them because they're totally in a different world, and they're being consumed by all this disinformation.
But it's also on the phones. Like, yes, headphones, but it's also like there are people who look down on the N train all the journey.
But I'm
And
thinking of the people walking on the street.
Yeah.
Sure.
You see people walking on the street with headphones.
Yeah.
I mean, a bomb can
I'm
go
with you.
off, and they're
I'm
just
with
going
you.
to continue walking.
I'm with you.
And it's everywhere. And that's
Yeah.
why my fear of
Yeah.
the audio is much more powerful to me
Yeah.
than the visual.
Well, no, the parallel, I think, with Hitler's patch of time and his control over the radio medium is a direct one to the moment we're in now when you look at that inauguration thing. You consider yourselves thankful that I didn't play more of that inauguration. Like we were going to line up since 5:30 today, some clips from that inauguration. We watched these guys moving about and smiling, and it is that moment. And there are photographs of those similar moments in the 1930s in Germany. So I'm with you. You actually get a second free copy of the book. I mean, and the people I don't like get 3 copies. But
And I have an anecdote that I think, I'm so glad you brought this up because it kind of summarizes what we're talking about in a way. Audio tape, from which videotape was developed in Germany in the 1930s.
Right.
The reason was that Hitler wanted to saturate the airwaves. So he developed a better way of recording audio so it could be basically in 2 places at once.
Right.
And when the Allies went into Germany, they were like, how is this guy in Berlin and like
Right.
30 minutes later he's in Düsseldorf?
Right.
Because he had developed this technology that was a complicated technology at the time, precisely to saturate people with audio.
I knew Hitler would come up today. I knew it. Yeah.
It's just one of many examples.
Yeah. Alice?
Okay, so last year at the Super Bowl, Alicia Keys performed, and she flipped a note. And when it was later posted on YouTube, the note was completely fixed. A few years ago, there was a documentary that premiered called They Shall Not Grow Old, which I highly recommend.
What is the name again?
They Shall Not Grow Old.
Okay.
It's about World War I, and it's directed by Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
They took footage of World War I, and they restored it in full color, even though it was black and white, and added sound. Very impressive feat. Is that preservation? Is that manipulation? The Alicia Keys thing, is that okay because it's just a Super Bowl performance, or not okay because you're still altering something? Where's the line between, trying to preserve things in their best light and, manipulation?
Yeah. Don't know.
And I'm asking this because
Yeah.
I manipulate images for a living. I'm a
You do?
colorist.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I
you're
mean,
the problem.
I can tell you that
Yeah.
archivists have, as you know, probably ethical mandates.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You couldn't tell?
I couldn't. I never knew that.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
good to know.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So we have ethical considerations, and one of the things that we do is have the preservation master. Probably should change that word, but and then have the access copies, in which you do things like restoration. And restoration is a whole other topic that we probably don't have time to cover today. But and one of the things that we do, for example, with our files is to create a hash, right? An MD5
Yes.
verification thing that,
Yes.
okay, this file cannot be manipulated with. And if you do, I mean, actually there are ways to do it, but you have to be pretty smart to manipulate it and be authenticated. So again, the technology is there. It's just that people don't choose to use it.
And it contributes to the crisis of trust in media of whatever kind, Alicia Keys media or anything. And I think that's hugely important to recognize that there's a role to be played by the archivist in this process. And the word archive itself comes from some Greek word that means power. That word relates to like autarky or, it is, what is it? Niarchos.
Oh, wow.
Could be. There's power there too. Yeah, that is a thing, and the archivist really needs to recognize their position as critical in our society at a moment when it's precisely under attack. Archives are, the archivist of the United States was fired. So, yeah, it's a huge challenge. Sorry.
I want to go backwards a little bit on something that you had mentioned, I guess, videos of, well, there are tons of videos of Hitler with his speaking and whatnot. And I was always amazed how the photographer, assuming, when they have mics and audio and everything, and how did they get away with doing this with this entire crowd? And one more thing related to it is when you see the videos of the battlefields. January 6th, all those videos, how does the photographer, well, okay, my question is really, do you think that they're almost or more brave than the actual soldiers that they are videotaping? I've always wondered about that. How did they get away with it? Are they that brave?
I think wartime journalists are always,
Yeah, but where does that
heroes.
come from? They're more brave than the soldiers. That's my take on it.
yeah.
So
I think there's bravery all around, but it's super important as a social responsibility maybe to document what goes on in war, and that's what they're doing, because wars are fought so often in the names of people, like whole nations, like ours. So I'm with you there, but I don't know if you have a take on it.
Yeah. Journalists are brave by nature. I think that's and especially war journalists. And there's another type of bravery which actually relates to what you said, which is the lawsuit that was brought against CBS for having manipulated the Kamala Harris interview, which has had a chilling effect on everybody. Because one of the things that a journalist does is tell a story using sources, which is what pretty much anyone in any kind of medium does, right? Like if I need to, if instead of putting these QR codes, you had to put the entire video of your book could never be published, right? Or it would be impossible. So you're going to choose parts that you are using to make your point. So it's had a chilling effect on our station. It has had a chilling effect on everybody.
Mhm.
And the irony, of course, is it comes from like, you know, Fox News hasn't been
Right.
hasn't been sued.
It's a really depressing conversation that we're in, but hopefully, Alice, maybe you'll rescue us from a,
Yeah, like,
Speak loudly enough so everybody can.
yeah.
hold on a second.
Wait, no,
hold
we
on a
need in the microphone so we can record you. Sorry.
So we can record you and
There you go.
manipulate it if we don't like if we don't like the question.
I want to start by saying I've already bought a book, so I can
Okay.
risk a question that
Yeah.
doesn't get me a free one.
Okay, all right.
But here's my question.
Did you pay retail?
Pardon?
No, did you pay retail?
I did.
Okay.
I did,
All right.
actually.
We got to talk.
Second
Yeah.
printing. Did I hear
Yeah,
that?
yeah,
It's on the
soon.
second
Yeah,
printing, by the
yeah,
way.
it's sold
Sorry.
out.
But here's my question. Everything that you said, that you both said in some sense this evening, is negative or depressing. It tells us that
My specialty.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
That
And
the
mine.
moving
Yours
image.
too, yeah. Okay.
The moving image has actually had a negative, and potentially will have even
Yeah.
a greater negative image in terms of falsifying what we learn about the society.
Yeah.
Well, tell us why. Give us some hope, I guess, is what I want to say.
I mean,
tell us
there's
why we should preserve it.
the moving
should-
image. That's nice. Boy, yes, you're right. The moving image, I'll go like
It's on you.
the moving image is a source of truth and beauty all the time. And the book, the first QR code in the book, the first video clip, is of Ada Limon reading a poem that I managed to be involved in filming for the Library of America series on Latin American poetry. It's full of riches. And it's for that reason that those, video, I get depressed now, or make other people depressed now for multiple reasons, but for one reason tonight in particular, which is that video is a key piece of evidence in January 6th, in war crimes trials, in war crimes that are committed without trial, or journalists who get, hounded by our intelligence agencies because they've distributed the record of that. So that's it's because those archives, which are so critically important to anyone, to historians, to filmmakers, to journalists, are under attack, that I tend to focus on that depressing content. But the book is I did a disservice in this, and my hope is, by the way, the Chicago Manual of Style, which is like 200 pages, this was the first edition from 1906, and the 2025 edition is 1,400 pages, and it weighs 5 pounds. And that's the way it's grown because of people recognizing the relevance of systematic approaches to citation. Well, I hope. I mean, talk to my publisher. There needs to be, but in the next edition, which I'm, in some preliminary converse, there is going to be a lot more, references to Saturday Night Live. Let's just say, so that people can laugh a bit more and respect that humor as well as more truth and beauty in there.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned. I think you're right. We've focused too much on the negative.
We
stuff.
really have.
But the power
started.
that the moving image has, I mean, it's almost like, maybe that's why we didn't dwell on that,
Yeah.
because it's so powerful and we've all felt it and we felt joy and.
My favorite phrase from your business, the radio business, in effect, is the driveway moment, which is an NPR kind of thing, where you are listening to something that's just so good that you pull into your driveway and you can't get out of your car, because, and I don't know what the print equivalent is. I don't know what the television or video equivalent is, but the driveway moment is just an amazing kind of concept, and life is full of those equivalents across all of our media, I think so.
Yeah.
So I think we're at time. If anybody has any extra questions, we can always ask Peter right outside.
Yeah.
But thank you.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Peter.
Thank you very much.